Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 of my favorite fantasy books of all time. So I did a video kind of like this last year where I just talked through all of my favorite books of all time regardless of the genre, but I figured since I do primarily read fantasy, I should make a fantasy specific version of this. So that's what we're doing today. Also a disclaimer, these probably aren't going to be books that you've never heard of before. Call my reading taste basic. I don't care, honestly. I also figured this could be a good kind of video to update every year or so as my taste in fantasy evolves, so I figured why not do one now, and then we'll see where we go from there. So without any further ado, let's just get into it. First up, I want to talk about a couple of historical fantasy series that I absolutely love. Historical fantasy is one of my favorite subgenres of fantasy, and I do tend to read a lot of it, but I have 3 on this list. The first one being a series that I recently completed, and it was so good. Like, the ending was great, honestly. And that is the Memoirs of Lady Trent series by Marie Brennan. This is a series set in a Victorian-esque kind of time period in society. While it doesn't necessarily take place on Earth, it's very similar to what Earth would have been like in the Victorian time period. And it follows our main character, Lady Trent, or Isabella, who has been interested in dragons for as long as she can remember. And throughout the series, you kind of see her as that interest grows and develops, and she eventually starts going on expeditions to see all of these different types of dragons all around the world. And she ends up going on these expeditions kind of as a sketch artist because, you know, in this kind of time period, women weren't exactly allowed to be natural historians. But throughout the series, you kind of see her overcoming a lot of hurdles. You see her kind of getting very entrenched in these expeditions, probably more than she was initially expecting. And I love the adventures that Isabella ends up going on. She goes to obviously places all over the world, so you're getting a lot of different climates and a lot of different dragons that would be in those climates. And if you want a series that focuses on a natural historian that really delves in to their topic of study, look no further because this is the perfect book for you. This series will truly tell you everything you could possibly want to know about these dragons and more. It is incredibly in-depth, but it is so cool. But that's truly just a testament to how well thought out this fantasy world is. It feels incredibly immersive. It feels so real as well. I also really love a lot of the social commentary that's in these books. I feel like every single book in the series kind of focuses on a certain topic and it explores that through the adventure that Isabella is going on, and it's done really smartly. So yes, if you want a book about dragons that really delves into the dragons, you gotta check this out. Another favorite historical fantasy series of mine is obviously the Emily Wilde series. I'm sorry, I know I talk about it all the time, but I couldn't not put this on the list. This is set in the early 1900s, and it is following our main character, Emily Wilde, who is a dryadology professor at Cambridge, which basically means she studies all things fairy, folklore, fairy tales, whatever, all of it. It encompasses it all, okay? And throughout the series, we're kind of following Emily as she is going on different expeditions to different areas of, I think just in Europe, to study the folk of that specific area. And throughout the series, you kind of see as Emily ends up tumbling into her own fairy tales in a way. And I love watching her as she is using all of her previous knowledge to kind of navigate this new situation that she's in. I think it's done really well. I also can't talk about this series without talking about the romance. It's not really the forefront of the first couple of books, but it is so good because Emily does have kind of like a department rival almost. Honestly, Emily is the only one who really thinks that they're rivals, but he ends up also going along on these expeditions, and Emily is just so exasperated with him all the time, and it's so fun. I also just love the writing in the series because Emily does spend a lot of time out in nature, wandering around, and I love all of the descriptions of the nature and the folk that she is encountering, and I'm so sad that it's over. I did recently finish this back in February. I wish there were gonna be like 10 more, but alas, it is just a trilogy. So if you want something fun that's like kind of cozy, but it does still have pretty high stakes once you get towards the end of the books, look no further. Then the last kind of historical fantasy series I have is a YA series that I couldn't not put on this list. It would feel wrong if I didn't put it on this list. And that's obviously the Infernal Devices. I can't escape it. It is still one of my favorite fantasy series. This is part of the Shadowhunters universe. It is one of the kind of prequel series to the other books. I don't really love the modern day Shadowhunters books. I would not go back and read them, but like the Infernal Devices, absolutely. It's so good. Basically, this is set in a Victorian era London, and we are following our main character, Tessa Gray, who is coming over from America because her aunt recently died, I think. And at the beginning of this book, she ends up getting captured by these witches? Demons? I don't remember what they are exactly. But they let her know that she has this ability to like shapeshift basically, which she never knew she had. So she's kind of like reeling from all of that. And then she ends up getting saved by one of our other main characters, Will, who is a shadow hunter, and he takes her back to the London Institute. and you know, things go from there. I love the vibes of this series. It's very like steampunk 1880s. I love it. Honestly, I feel like my love for historical fantasy definitely stems from the Infernal Devices. Like, there's no other point of origin that I can pinpoint. I love the characters. I love the romance in this series. It's a love triangle situation, but I promise it's good. So you could start with this book. If you've never read any of the other Shadowhunters books, you could start with this, and I honestly, at this point, recommend doing that. Don't read the Mortal Instruments because it's not good, but this series is good. Next up, I want to talk about some more epic scale, high fantasy kind of reads. So the first one should come as no surprise to anybody because we all know that I love the Cosmere, but I decided to only pick one book from the Cosmere to save us all from me harping on it any longer. And that's my favorite book, and that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn series. If you guys, for whatever reason, don't happen to know what this is about, even though it's incredibly popular, this is basically following our main character Vin, who ends up being recruited by this guy named Kelsier, and he's like, hey, you are a Mistborn. I'm gonna teach you how to use all these cool powers where you can like ingest metal and then like do cool things with it basically. Also, you're gonna help us with this heist to overthrow this guy who's been really oppressive to all of the people in the city and just the surrounding areas that this takes place in. And why are you acting crazy? Why don't you just sit? Sitting's good. But I just love absolutely everything about this book. This is one of my very few 6-star reads. I read it twice. It was great both times. I love the characters. Vin is a great main character, and kind of following her dynamic with Kelsier as he kind of becomes her mentor is so great to follow. I also absolutely love the magic system. As I said, it kind of works with you ingesting metals, and then based on what metal you ingest, you can do different things, like jump really high, see really far, you can influence people's emotions. There are just a lot of cool things, and the scope of the magic system really just expands over the course of this series, as well as Era 2 of Mistborn, which is like, you know, an honorable mention. I do love Era 2, but The Final Empire remains my favorite out of all of the Mistborn books, so I felt like this is the one that I needed to mention. This is also a really great place to start with the Cosmere if you've been looking for it. If you've been looking for a place to start with it. I'm gonna kick her out in a minute. She's been so crazy. So, The Final Empire. Yeah, read it. It's so good. Then I have a recent addition to this list, and that is The Sword of Kaigen by Emma Wong. I read this back in December, and it honestly blew me away. I had just heard great things about this for years, so when I finally picked it up, and I was like, damn, it is as good as everybody says it is. This is a fantasy standalone, so if you're looking for something... Alright, I gotta kick her out. As I was saying, this is a fantasy standalone, so if you're looking for something a little bit lower commitment than, you know, trying to read a 3, 4, 5 book series, again, an excellent pick. And this is kind of focusing on a family that lives on the Sword of Kaigen, which is a peninsula that's kind of the first line of defense against any invading forces that may be trying to attack the Kaigenese Empire. And throughout this book, it really touches on a lot of different things. I really love the kind of political landscape of this world. Through our main characters, you're kind of learning about how corrupt this government is, and you're seeing that a lot of propaganda has been fed to the people of the Sword of Kaigen that has been keeping them in the dark about an impending war that has been brewing. So the fallout of that is really interesting to follow. I also really love the magic system that is present in this book. It's very Avatar: The Last Airbender, elemental magic kind of feeling, and it's so good. There are some really cool things that our characters do with this magic system that I will never forget, honestly. This book also has really great plot beats as well as emotional beats. I feel like it's a really good mixing of the two, because through one of the main characters that we're following, who is kind of the mother of this family, her name is Misaki. Throughout the book, you're learning a lot about her past as a warrior and kind of how that is juxtaposed with what her life is like now as a wife and mother. And even though she loves her kids and she loves her family, you can tell that there's just something missing for her at this point in her life. So as the book goes on and you see her kind of maybe needing to step back into that warrior role a little bit, it is so good. She has so many epic moments in this book. I feel like it's very rare that a book gets me like actually excited and like so hyped for something that our characters are doing, but like the fight scenes are written so well in this book that you can't help but just get sucked into them. So this book is just excellent. However, I do think there are a couple things that like may deter people from absolutely loving this. I do think the first couple of chapters are a little bit info dumpy, but like just make it past the first few. I promise it gets better. And the ending of this book does take a little bit of time to set up for a series that never ends up happening. Emma Wong just decided she didn't want to write it. But despite those, it was still one of my favorite books of last year, and if you want a action-packed fantasy standalone, you should check this out. And then the last book that's like, you know, in my epic whatever kind of fantasy category is again a basic answer, but like how could I not say The Lord of the Rings? I'm sorry, I won't spend like too much time talking about it. But I reread The Fellowship of the Ring back in September and I loved it so much. I love how slow and meandering this book is, honestly, because I rewatch the movies more than I reread the books. And even though the movies are like a little bit slow and meandering, it is nothing compared to the book. But I really love those moments. I feel like Tolkien really, you know, he takes the time to describe the weather, to describe the nature, to describe how our characters are feeling, where they're going next, where they've been, like all of this stuff. It's just great. I love his prose so much. And obviously the story overall is great, but like that's just something that stood out to me on my last read of this book, and I loved it, obviously. And then my last grouping of books is kind of just the rest of them, but they all do share kind of a whimsical quality to them, so we'll go with that as the category. So first up, I couldn't not mention Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. If you guys want a really whimsical and lyrical story that is following our main character Laszlo Strange as he is trying to discover the secrets of the lost city of Weep, you should absolutely check it out. It also has such a cute romance in it. Like, the romance in this book is precious, honestly. It is very insta-love, and you guys know my vehement hatred towards insta-love, but something about it being done in this context just works so well. But this story is truly so transportive, and that is only highlighted by Laini Taylor's prose because it is stunning. I also would say that despite the whimsical and lovely writing, this series overall kind of has a melancholic tone to it, which I really loved. I also really love the characters in this series. Laszlo is such an endearing main character to follow, but there are also so many other complex and nuanced characters in this series as well. You're definitely gonna change your mind on a lot of characters, but in the best way, honestly. It really keeps you on your toes, I'd say, but it's really great in that way. And then I have two books that I'm kind of gonna talk about together because I'm gonna touch on these pretty briefly, but those are both of Erin Morgenstern's books. Obviously, The Starless Sea is one of my favorite books of all time. It's so beautiful. It is a book about books. It is following our main character, Zachary, I think is his name, as he is wandering his university library and he finds a book that has a story from his life that he has never shared with anybody before. So that kind of sets him on this whole journey of figuring out who wrote this book, how they knew the story, why they wrote it, and that's really all you need to know about this book. Just know that it is a whimsical time. If you're not in the mood to be like slightly confused for 3/4 of this book, I wouldn't recommend it, but if you are a book lover, and I would assume you are if you are watching this video, this is the book for you. This is a book for people who love stories. You're gonna find so many quotes that you love in this book. The writing is absolutely stunning, as you can come to expect with Erin Morgenstern's writing. It's just beautiful and like one of my favorite reading experiences. It was so good. And then, you know, The Night Circus isn't like as much of a top favorite, but it's still a book that really stands out in my mind. This is a I guess I could have put this with the historical ones, huh? Oh well, I didn't, that's fine. But we all know what The Night Circus is about. It's about this circus that kind of just shows up overnight without warning. The book kind of ends up following our two main characters, Marco and Celia, as they have been entered into this lifelong magic competition that they certainly did not ask to be a part of, but it's also a love story between the two of them. And again, it's just so beautiful. I love Erin Morgenstern's writing so dearly. I want her next book so badly. She said it was gonna be a spring one because this one like has very fall vibes. The Starless Sea has very winter vibes. I need the spring one. Please, please. But one of the main things that stands out to me about this book and one of the main things that I love this book for is the fall and wintry imagery that's in it. There's so many beautiful lines about it being autumn, about the leaves, about Halloween. It's just, I just love it so dearly. It's so good. I mean, obviously a lot of people love The Night Circus and I am certainly one of those people because I love a whimsical fantasy story. And if you also love a whimsical fantasy story and you haven't read The Night Circus, you gotta do it. And then finally on this list, I have a series that like I might be kind of cheating by putting it on here because I've only read 3 books out of this 40 book series. But like at the present moment, I love this series so much and I feel like the more I read, the more I'm going to fall in love with it. So like maybe it's a little premature that I'm putting it on here, but it's also my video and I'm gonna do what I want, so. The last series that I want to talk about is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. I just have the first 2 books in the series, The Color of Magic and The Light Fantastic. I've read the first 3 Discworld books, really loved them all. I'd say they're like 4 to 4.5 kind of material if I was gonna rate them. So I just felt like I had to mention them on this list. If you guys don't know what Discworld is, it's kind of an absurdist, satirical fantasy story. It basically takes place on this disc, which is called, you know, the Discworld. It's kind of just like a flat earth kind of situation, but it takes place on this disc, which is on the back of 4 elephants, which is on the back of this giant turtle that's floating through space. I know it sounds like a little like, haha, random, whatever. It kind of is, but like in the best possible way, I promise. But I love this first little like duology. I think these two can kind of be read as their own little series within Discworld. These are following our main character Rincewind, who ends up getting kind of swept up in this epic quest thing that he never really asked to go on. He's accompanied by this tourist whose name is Two Flower, who kind of showed up in one of the main cities on the disc, which is called Ankh-Morpork. And he ended up causing a lot of issues, hence why he and Rincewind had to like go on this adventure. And I've just loved the chaos, honestly, that went on in these first two books. It's so entertaining. It also satirizes a lot of very popular like fantasy cliches. I also just love Terry Pratchett's writing. The way that he interacts kind of with you as the reader through the narrative, I think is done really well. And I think sometimes that can be a little much, but I think the way he does it is like just the right amount. So I'm really excited to read more of Discworld. I know I've talked about it a lot, but like I'm excited about it. What can I say? I think this is definitely going to be a series that I will be reading over a long span of time because, as I said, it is like 40 books long. I've only read 3 of them, but I'm so excited for the books that I have ahead of me, and I cannot wait to jump into more of them. I am currently reading Mort, and I'm really liking that one as well. So there we have it. Those are my 10 favorite fantasy books at the present moment. Obviously, this list will change many times over the course of my life, but at this point in time, these are the ones that I would pinpoint as my top fantasy reads. So obviously this video begs the question, what are some of your top fantasy books of all time? Do we share any? I would assume we do. Also, before we go, I would like to thank everybody over on my Patreon. If you're ever looking for more content from me, that is always linked down below. We always do some fun stuff over there. We do typically read fantasy books for our monthly book club, so if you want to come join, you totally can. And with that, I'm gonna let you guys go. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having an amazing Monday or whatever day it is that you're watching this video, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!